a year ago. Elation this season.
It was a thrill of a lifetime. You know, when I still talk about it, I can get a big lump in my throat. And remembering in the locker room just this lump of winning the tournament, the range of emotion of seeing their hard work pay off and being so incredibly proud of them for being that first team, to the community support and feeling the aloha 2,500 miles away, and then feeling the stress that I had been under of, we're supposed to win this tournament and go to the NC2A. And what if I don't? What a failure is that? And being able to sit in a corner by myself and go, oh my gosh, we did this. And just tears of happiness, of joy. It was, right now, a little emotional. It was an amazing experience. I want to get back there. I want to have this feeling again.
University of Hawaii women's basketball coach Laura Beeman likes winning. Yet her drive to make her players the best they can be isn't limited to the basketball court. She's teaching them life lessons that will continue to guide them long after they graduate. Laura Beeman, next on Long Story Short.
Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox is Hawaii's first weekly television program produced and broadcast in high definition.
Aloha mai kako. Laura Lynn Beeman moved to Hawaii in 2012 to become the head coach of the University of Hawaii Rainbow Wahine basketball team. At that time, the team was losing more games than it was winning. It didn't take Laura Beeman long to turn the team around. In 2016, only 4 years after she took over, the Rainbow Wahine won the Big West Conference Championship, securing a spot at the pinnacle event in college postseason basketball, March Madness. It was the program's 6th appearance overall, but only the first in 18 years. Laura Beeman has always been competitive. That's how she was raised.
Both my parents are very, very competitive. They're self-made. You know, my dad opened up a pharmacy with his brother right out of college, and it was an independent pharmacy. And basically, my mom supported him. You know, his parents told him, if you guys get married, you're on your own. And they decided to get married, and my mom said, well, I'll put you through USC, pharmacology. She did. And
how did she do it?
She sacrificed her education and she worked. So I think that drive comes from them. You know, as a kid, I watched my father work 17, 18-hour days to support his family so that his wife could raise children, and my mom doing everything she could to support her husband. So I saw that hard work from a very, very young age, and was always told by my parents, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it right. You know, you're gonna have a great attitude, you're gonna give it all the effort you have, or don't do it. And so I think it was instilled at a very young age, even though I didn't know that was going on, youngest of 4, and was immediately just thrust into sports. I have an older brother. And so, you know, growing up, we went to school with one another. We went to a Christian school all the way up until middle school. And sports just became a huge foundation of mine and my brother's life. You know, Sunday church, and then come home after church, go to a little grinder store grinder shop down the street, come back, open up the grinders, eat, and watch football. And so that was kind of my life growing up.
When you went to college at California State University at San Bernardino, you earned a bachelor's in business marketing.
Yeah.
And?
I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And someone said, you know, business is probably one of the areas that is most marketable. You can do anything from being a sports agent to get into law to go do sales. And so I thought, I have no idea, you know, what I want to do. I had been told by a woman who worked for my father, you can sell, you know, ice cubes to Eskimos. And so we always laughed about that. And so I thought, let me go into business. So while I was playing sports, got my business degree with a concentration in marketing, thinking I could do sales or maybe sports agent, and then graduated and was like, what am I going to do with my life?
Then what happened?
Well, I got a phone call from an assistant coach at the University of Redlands, and they said, we heard you're in town, we have a graduate assistant position open, would you like to get your master's paid for and get into coaching? And I thought, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. So let me market myself, make myself a little bit more well-rounded. So I went and received a master's in educational counseling. And I love the counseling aspect, had no idea I would, and had no idea how useful that would come in coaching. So when I started coaching at the University of Redlands, the basketball coaching bug it bit. I loved playing, but I had no idea I would want to coach.
What would you have done if you hadn't gotten that call? And then you get a free master's? I mean, that's
Yeah.
quite amazing.
It is. It is, again, right place, right time. I have no idea. I was working for my dad at his pharmacy. I probably would have continued to work for him, had no desire to become a pharmacist. I don't know what I would have done, but I would have worked for him until I landed on my feet someplace.
Do you remember how and when that coaching bug bit you?
I think pretty immediately. When I went to the University of Redlands, it was sitting back and watching what the coaches did and what I liked and what I didn't like, and how kids responded and how kids didn't respond. And then really figuring out, okay, these kids respond to me with a little bit of a different approach. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I can kind of figure this out as I go. I was there for 2 years, and that's when Mount San Antonio Community College in Southern California, the job opened up. I was not hired as the head coach. I was hired as the assistant women's basketball coach. And again, watched how coaches did things and how players responded. Fortunate for me and unfortunate for that coach, it didn't work out for her, and they hired me the next year as the head coach.
You were 25 years old.
I was young, yeah. I had players that were older than me, so I had to establish some pretty strong boundaries. And again, that goes back to my parents. It goes back to watching them have very, very good boundaries in their life and their relationship. Going back to coaches I played for and coaches that had really good boundaries and coaches that maybe didn't.
What kind of boundaries do you need when you're younger than your players?
Well, you can't go party with them. You can't go drink with them. If you're a male coach, female coach, you can't date players. So there's a lot of things you can't do. And you see that all the time. You hear of both female and male coaches that get involved with players. And that's just a boundary that's not appropriate. Going to clubs with them. So it's just setting these boundaries of, I'm in a different category, in a position of power, I guess, a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people abuse that, and that was something that I was always very cognizant of, is respecting the young ladies. I would never walk into a locker room and just walk in unannounced. Hey, I'm coming in, put your clothes on, get yourself appropriate, whether it's a male assistant coach walking in with me or not. There was just a very strong, strict boundary that I was always made sure that I held, and I wanted my players to see that, because that's something that, as they grew in their life, there has to be boundaries in their life as well, with relationships and other things. From
the beginning, were you pretty good at reading players? I mean, you've been in sports all your life, so you knew a lot about dynamics. What about reading individuals?
Some people think I'm crazy for saying this on the show. I went through a lot of counseling, later on in my life, and that is probably what helped me read people and understand human behavior. And it also allowed me to develop a philosophy that if I wanted players to be their best, then I had to help them get to their best. If I wanted my players to be their best, I had to be at my best. And so reading players and reading people, human behavior, I feel like that's something that I'm pretty decent at.
Sometimes the things that help you get to where you are aren't the best thing for where you need to go.
No, sometimes they're painful, sometimes they're hard, sometimes they are, I'm not a believer that everything happens for a reason, although I guess it does, but I'm not a believer in that. I think things just are cruddy sometimes and they happen. But it's how you deal with that, and it's the after effect that can take you to a really good, solid place in your life where you can continue to live in that yuck. And I just decided there was a point in my life where I didn't want to live in that yuck.
Well, you were already an authority figure when you went for counseling,
yes.
Right? Was that hard to ask for help?
Yes, absolutely. It's hard to go in and kind of put your heart on the table and get very vulnerable with someone, particularly someone you don't know, and let them kind of not pick you apart, but say, okay, let's go here, and you're like, I don't want to go there. Very, very difficult, particularly as a coach, because you're always in control.
How do you deal with stress? I mean, there's so many things you can't control in your life as a coach.
Yeah, I think one of them is, you just hit it on the head, is admitting and knowing what I can't control. There are just certain things that I cannot control because I don't know what's going to happen with it. I have 2 huge dogs that walk me, and I love that. So I get them out, go on hikes, try to just enjoy the beauty of Hawaii. The quality of life here is very different than on the mainland. And so for as busy and as stressed as I am, I have learned to enjoy that. And it's a forced, take a deep breath. Again, going back to what I said earlier, being my best me. I know when I'm tired, I know when I'm overworked, I know when I'm cranky and people don't want to be around me. And it's that moment I need to say, okay, pause and admit it.
For 15 years, Laura Beeman was head coach of the women's college basketball team at Mount San Antonio in a suburb of Los Angeles. She became a legend, leading the team to a record number of wins and state championships. 3 years after she left, she accepted the position of head coach for Hawaii's Rainbow Wahine basketball team. The program was in serious need of revitalization, but before Beeman could turn things around, she would first have to change the team culture.
The first year of recruiting, when you know you did bring us out of a big stall.
Well, you know, the cupboard wasn't bare. Yeah, you know, the coach prior did a great job of putting, you know, things there, pieces there for me. And so we were able to take that group of young ladies and kind of regenerate and rejuvenate them and say, let's go. And they really bought into the philosophy of it's not okay to be okay. We want to be better than okay. We want to be great. We want people to recognize us as great, and they bought into that.
So was that kind of a culture of we're good enough? It's good enough.
Very much so. That was when I met my team the first time. That was the running theme. Is I said, okay, what's going on? And I remember Shauna Kwehu, love her. Came into my office last week. She said, Coach, I'm tired of just being okay, and it's okay to be okay here. And I said, I've never been okay. I've never been average. I've never been okay, and now I know what the problem is. So give me your laundry list of things we need to change. I'll let you know the things that I can try to change and the things I know I can change. And the one thing I can change is that culture. We're not going to be average here, but you're going to have to work.
Yeah, you can't change the culture by saying that's not okay. You have to. How do you change a culture? I mean, this is not just one thing. This is a system of beliefs.
Yeah. One, I think you have to walk the walk as the coach. You know, you can't walk in and be late and be on your cell phone. And again, the things I spoke of earlier, you know, using foul language or just, you have to present yourself as a winner. You have to present yourself as a champion. Whether or not you feel you are, you have to present yourself as that. And I truly believe that if I could get this group of young ladies to buy into, I don't lose, you guys. And I'm not trying to be arrogant. Not at all. I've been fortunate to have wonderful assistant coaches and resources and have been able to get kids to come together and say, hey, look at my record. This is what we're going to do here if you buy in. And here's another thing. If you don't want to buy in, what you're doing isn't working. So try something different. And they did. And so it was a daily challenge to say, no, tuck your uniform in. Tie your shoes this way. Get in here, get to class, do what you're supposed to do. Get on the inline, work hard, or please leave the gym because you're the one that said you didn't want to be okay, not me. I have my degree. I've won. Let's go. And so when you talk that way to kids and you paint that picture of, I really think I can do this, and we have a leader that knows how to do it.
And you challenge them.
Big time. Big time. I'm not going to let a kid sit back and say they want something and then not work for it. You have two choices. Tell me what you want and we're going to go, or tell me what you want, not do it, and then I'm going to ask you to go ahead and sit over there in the corner by yourself and do your thing, because you can do that without me. But if you want to win and you want to be good, then let's get together and let's do this the right way. Don't tell me what you want to do. Do what you're going to do. And that was a challenge, and that's where we took that first group of young ladies is, let's go. That's enough of this. We have talent, and they bought into it.
So you started with these young women, and you made inroads, and you find somebody you really want to bring over. How do you get them here when they're really looking askance at Hawaii?
Yeah. We sell Hawaii on connection. We sell Hawaii on relationships. We sell Hawaii on the community. You know, we have been fortunate that 4 of our 5 years we've done very well. And so we can approach the, okay, we've won.
How did your system of recruiting change as you went along? Where you got to be the Big West Conference winner and Coach of the Year?
That was fun. You know, as young ladies evolved as players, we all of a sudden said, okay, this is the system we want to run. This is what we need to do to be successful in the Big West. And so you go out and you kind of recruit pieces that fit your puzzle, fit your system. And so we were able to, after that first year, we were late in the recruiting process. You know, you recruit 2 and 3 years
And you
in
came,
advance.
I think, before the 2012-13 season.
April, yeah.
April, okay.
And so recruiting, though, for 2012, 13, 14, the coaches are already in the mix. They've already offered kids that were 14s, graduating in 14. So we were behind the gun. We went after some key pieces. We found a couple of JUCO kids. We found a fifth year.
What does JUCO mean?
JC, Community College, 2-year. found a couple, JC kids, went and found a 5th-year transfer, immediate fixes, immediate pieces, good character kids, but they were going to have to work, and they were able to get the group together. And then we were able to play catch up a little bit in the recruiting process, and then bring in people that we wanted, high character, great work ethic, pieces as far as whether it's a post player or a guard, bring in those right pieces. And then by the year that we finished second in conference and went to the NC2As, we had put our puzzle together, and that was a really fun year.
Well, when you were looking for those pieces, you were looking for specific athletic strengths, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And you said high character.
That's important. If I look at a kid that's high character and I can get the effort piece, then I know I'm not going to have problems off the court. When I'm bringing in a young lady where I'm constantly go to class, don't go to the club, what are you doing? It's taking energy away from where we want to put our energy. So the character, I say as a coach, the two things you should never have to coach as a coach are attitude and effort. I'll coach your ability. I'll motivate you, but I'm not going to coach your effort, and I'm not going to coach your attitude.
But you don't know how a young person is going to act when they get to this new exotic place away from their parental eyes and family.
You hope that you've developed enough of a relationship in the evaluation process of going out and watching them play over the phone, through some text messages, talking to parents, that at least you're not going to completely get it wrong. Now, have I got it wrong? Absolutely. And I'll get it wrong again. But you really try to develop a relationship. Recruiting is a relationship. It's a fit. It's not just I like the way you play, come play for me. There has to be more to it so that you can keep kids here.
And I'm sure there's always a temptation to say, well, this person has great raw talent. I'm going to take a big chance on somebody who doesn't have a lot of the other elements. Have you done that in your coaching career?
I have. I did that at Mount Sac a lot because I had already developed a culture. And I knew when I had a kid, say, that would come in with a bad attitude, I had 14 young ladies in that locker room that were going to help me manage them, and a couple really good captains that were going to keep them in check. I couldn't do that my first 2 years here because we hadn't developed the culture. When you get a good culture, you can take some risks, you can take some chances because you have that base of great locker room talk where they come in and they're like, hey, let's do this, and your captains go, no, that's not what champions do, let's not do that. So when you get a little bit of a better culture and a foundation, you can take more risks.
How have local recruitments gone?
Tough. It's tough. The theme right now and the trend right now, they want to go to the mainland. They want a mainland experience. And some of them do well and stay. A lot of them come back home. I would love to keep our local talent here, but it's tough to fight through the allure of the mainland. So right now we're going after them. We're offering kids. I just have to keep them home.
And you don't have a lot of people who are really tall awaiting your call either in Hawaii.
Yeah, but I have some tremendous athletes, and I have young ladies that understand the culture and understand what it feels like to represent the state of Hawaii and play in front of their family and their aunties and their uncles, and that's huge. So I can find the guard or the forward possibly that wants to stay. Yeah, would I love there to be a 6'4", 6'5" local kid that wants to stay home that can play basketball? Absolutely. Whether or not that happens, those are things I can't control. I don't worry about it. Right now, my challenge is to keep them here.
Recruiting players and training them to perform during practice and games are only part of Coach Laura Beeman's job. Teaching young people to become top athletes often requires coaching them off the court as well to learn the life skills they'll need to achieve their athletic goals.
John Wooden, a great basketball coach, coined for this phrase of kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you get people, business, team, whatever it is, when people really know you care about them, then you get a common goal. And people want to work hard for you. And that's not just, let me fake caring about these kids and then they're going to work hard. My players know I genuinely care about them.
How do they know? Do they test you?
Of course they do. What children don't test, right?
How do they test you?
They're going to see how far they can take the disciplinary. If they miss a class, is coach really going to, suspend me?
And that's constant management for you, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's constant discipline for me to stay consistent. Kids say they don't want discipline. Kids love discipline, and they want consistency. So it's a test for me to say, we just talked about this last week. Here we go again. That's where I have to be very disciplined in what I do.
And the punishment is they sit out.
Yeah. And you know, I don't like a lot of rules. I want my players to manage themselves and discipline themselves and know the right way to go. There's an area though that I don't have any wiggle room, and that's academics. A lot of coaches, when kids don't go to class, they put them on the track and they run them. Well, my kids are already in shape, so running them is very easy. I sit them. And for my mainland kids, I sit them when they go home. I let them warm up and don't tell them, and they go through all the warm-ups so people know they're not hurt, and then they don't play. And then the parents come and say, why did my kid not play? Go talk to your kid about her academics. Doesn't happen again. And I tell my players that up front. I will put you in a position where you're going to now get in trouble by your parents, not just me. So we have a 3.1, 3.2 GPA. And that's a pretty good GPA when we do as much traveling as we do. And I have a committed group of young ladies that understand that rule very, very clearly.
Through the time you've been coaching, have the issues that your players bring to you, personal issues, have they changed?
No. When I was at Mount Sac, I dealt with a population that most of the population, single parent, first generation in college, a lot of learning disabilities and a lot of abuse, whether it was substance, domestic, sexual, a lot of abuse. And so basketball became the carrot that they wanted dangled in front of them because that was their way out. That was their way into a better life. So I would say that the school that I didn't deal with it as much, not that it wasn't there, but the kids didn't have the need to come and talk to me as a coach, was USC, different socioeconomic status. Coming back to Hawaii, the problems are the same, and it's just, do kids know that they're there? Do kids want to talk about them? And my door is always open in case they do.
What about a difference in, we're seeing a change in generations and use of media, and I mean all kinds of changes in society. Is that reflected in the players you coach?
It is. They're very connected all the time to their devices. And I remember the first time I ever thought, wow, there's a separation with connection. A player texted me and said, Coach, my grandmother died. And I'm like, don't text me that, come and see me. We need to give a hug here. We need to have a conversation. I need to check in with you. And all of a sudden, you get those types of conversation in text. There's a disconnect. There's an appropriate way of text messaging. Hey, meet me for coffee. Great. But don't tell me a life issue through a text message, because I can't see how you are and you can't relay how you are. And it just allows kids to build this huge wall where they don't get vulnerable, they don't share emotion. And it doesn't have to be with me. But I don't think anyone can hide behind a wall their entire life and have healthy relationships. So there's a huge disconnect. More today than when I started at Mount Sac. And I'm dealing with the same age group, right? It's that I get older, they stay the same.
And so you've gotten a chance to see what happens to your 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old players. What have you seen as far as after their sports involvement? What happens?
A lot of them have gone into coaching. A couple of them are in administration. You see them get into, get married, have children, or great relationships. Get jobs where they're successful. And a lot of them come back and say, Coach, this is what I'm doing. And it's great. You going to weddings and, it's been great to see them grow as young women and see them apply some of the things that they fought you on so many years ago.
And now they enforce.
I watch them coach and I'm like, okay, now they get it. They get how hard this is. And watching them have those boundaries and those rules, and it's really fun. It's really fun.
Did you have to go through a learning curve to be accepted here? Did you have to change anything about yourself?
That's the weird thing for me, is I feel like I'm more myself here than I've ever been because of how accepting people are. I got some great advice when I was hired. Don't get political, stay out of it. Understand the culture and some key things about the culture. And I listened to that. And also saw that the people that were mentoring me and on my interview committee and women that came up and said, we want to be in your hui, we want to help you, were authentic. And they were just transparent in everything they did with me. And I saw that and I thought, okay, you need to be Laura Beeman. You can't be anybody else. You have to be Laura Beeman. And if you're honest and do things the way that you feel is right, even if you make a mistake, people are going to be okay with that. I don't know why I was embraced here so quickly, but I'm thankful for it.
You have a statewide constituency as coach, especially in the islands, because we don't have professional sports. And so, statewide audiences are watching and proud or willing to complain.
And when they see you embrace the culture and they see you embrace, and I'm just going to say it, the aloha spirit, they're They love that. And so when you have an off year, I've probably had more people come to me this off season and say, Coach, great job. And this is the worst year we've had, because they see it in my face that this was a tough year. We struggled. This is not what I wanted. This is not meeting my expectations. And so pounding my head against the wall, what I did wrong, I've had more people come up to me and say, keep doing what you're doing. That doesn't happen in a lot of other places. You walk through the airport and instead of someone looking at you and giving you stink eye, they come up and they, thank you, Coach. And can we take pictures with you and your team? And can you sign this? And my little girl wants to meet you. And that comes at wonderful, wonderful times when it's tough. I feel that the community here sees these kids in the community. They see these kids going to class and graduating. They see the work that we're putting in and embracing what we have here. And I think that that's something that when you live here, you understand it. If you don't live here, you don't.
You've been through a lot of victories in your life, though.
Yeah.
I mean, does it get old hat?
No. Winning is fun.
When Laura Beeman first arrived at UH, the buzz was quite positive. Her hire was considered a good get for the University of Hawaii. And since then, there have been rumors about certain Pac-12 schools being very interested in hiring her away. At the time of our conversation in 2017, 5 years in, Coach Beeman said Hawaii has been good to her. She did mention that coaching at this level is tough on the body and the daily schedule, and there will be a time when she'd like to explore athletics administration. Mahalo to Laura Beeman of Honolulu, and thank you for watching Long Story Short on PBS Hawaii. I'm Leslie Wilcox. Aloha ahui ho.
For audio and written transcripts of all episodes of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, visit pbshawaii.org. To download free podcasts of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, go to the Apple iTunes Store or visit pbshawaii.org.
You have to make a lot of real-time, fast decisions when you're in the middle of a game. How do you do that? And do you have trouble doing that?
At times, for sure. At times you can get caught up in the emotion. You can get caught up in a certain play and miss what's going on over here. That's why I have incredible assistant coaches. They don't miss a thing. It's teamwork. This is not the Laura Beeman show, trust me.